Hi, my name is Jamie Phillip with Cheema Freight Lines. I'm joined today by my friend Eric Donahue to talk about our equipment. How are you doing today, Eric?
Doing great.
Fantastic. Well, I see some beautiful equipment parked right behind us. Can you tell us a little bit about what we've got here?
Yeah, in the middle we have our Freightliner Cascadia. Over to the right is our Peterbilt 579, and over to the other side is the Kenworth T680. These are all 2023 models.
All right, well, I hope maybe you take me in for a closer look.
Absolutely.
Let's do that.
Okay. This is our Kenworth T680. It's equipped with a Cummins X15 engine in it with a 12-speed automatic transmission. You want to get in and take a look?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go. So here we are with our Kenworth T680. The battery switch is located next to the rear of the driver's seat. Just turn it to the left to turn it on clockwise, and you'll hear it click in place. That turns the batteries on, the power of the truck. Always remember 3 points of contact when you are getting in and out of any truck. So we're in our Kenworth T680. This is the advanced model, the new model they just came out with this last year. Has a digital readout, digital dash display. Start out with our ELD right here, our mobile comm. Always best to have the key on and the engine running to actually operate this thing. It just does better with more voltage. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the key on. If you look at the dash, you can see everything light up. It's going to boot in. The wonderful thing about this dash is you can actually make it your own. You can mix and match gauges. You can put them all up like this, or using your center button here on the right. You can switch them off or just put as many in as you like and set them up your way. Your windshield wiper controls are to the left. Your light check button is over here. Press this button on the left here, and that will actually cycle your lights through so you can do a pre-trip inspection, check all of your lights. On the left hand side we have our cruise control. To turn it on, just turn the on button. You can set it with the top button. There's the resume button. If you hit your brakes, have to hit the brakes, and you want to hit resume, just hit that. It'll bring you back up to where you're at. So over on the right hand side we have our control buttons for the dash. If you want to change your display, just roll this up or down. That will show you where or get different displays on there. Just pick the one you like. You can also go in there and mix and match. You can choose which gauge you want and where you want it at. This is also your main menu. If you want to go through and actually do a check, go down to active warnings. It will actually show you the active warnings on the truck. Just click and it'll show you all the systems that are on there. These are all showing green. To go back, just hit the back button and that'll take you back to your gauges. Experiment with it. You can't hurt it. Have fun with it. There is an owner's manual in here. Read it. It'll tell you exactly how to do it. On the right we have our transmission controller. We call it a transmission stock. This controls your transmission, also your Jake brakes. Put it in forward, into drive to go forward, reverse, and neutral. Make sure when you park the truck and you put it in neutral, before you shut the engine off, wait a few seconds to make sure it has found neutral before you do it. This also controls the Jake brakes. The up position is off. You have one head, two heads, three heads. One thing you need to remember, if you are running on one head, do not just pull it down into three positions. It will drop the transmission gears down and will overrev the truck. So do it very slowly. Also, while operating this transmission, it is an automatic transmission. It does have a way to shift manually. We prefer you keep it in automatic instead of shifting manually. Reason being is it's set for the maximum fuel economy. If you start shifting it manually, we will lose that fuel economy right there. Over to the right, this is what stands for a Charlie valve for the trailer. Instead of a handle, a T-handle, or anything like that, is just a squeeze valve. This is how you control your brakes right here. This is for your engine fan. Traction control, if you need to disengage it, you can do that. I suggest you don't. On the lane departure button, one thing to remember, a lot of times you can go into when you go into a construction zone, it can confuse the wingman system. You'll press this button on to deactivate the system while you are in the construction zone. it'll deactivate for a bit so it doesn't pick up any weird signals. But always make sure it is reactivated afterwards, and it should automatically go back in. This is your hill assist. These tractors are equipped with hill assist if you're at a stop. The time it takes to get from your brake pedal to the accelerator, this will hold you in place for that. This is for your regen, for the after treatment. Never hit disable. Please don't, unless it's absolutely necessary. You go up to disable though if you have to. Down is for manual, and we'll kind of go into that in a different video. Over to the right is your ride height. This is for dumping the airbags. When you drop a trailer, go up to dump the bags. Always remember to put it back and reinflate them. Don't drop anywhere without it. This button is for your interaxle differential lock. Some people call it a power divider. That's what I like to call it. That will lock it in. If you get into a place with lots of potholes or high centers, you can lock that in. You won't get stuck. This is your fifth wheel release button, the kingpin release. And this is to adjust the fifth wheel. Now the important part in these Kenworths is where the light switches are at. If you look up here, they are up in a bank up here on the top. The red, of course, is your hazards. These are your headlights. These are your marker lights. Those both must be on when you're driving down the road at night. That illuminates all the lights. And of course, this is the bunk light if you need to turn the bunk light from the cab. Right here we have our pressure gauge for the suspension. So you can do the math and find how much weight you have on your drive axles. Never ever use this to substitute a certified scale. Always, if you have a heavy load, go to a certified scale to make sure it's correct. Don't trust this thing. It's good for ballpark figures, nothing else. Over here we have our HVAC controls for the air conditioner and heater for the cab. First dial is the fan switch. Turn it up to bring the fan up. In the middle here, it will turn off recirculate or fresh air. So if you wanted just to recirculate the air inside the cab, turn that on. Over here is your temperature control. Set it to where you like, the comfort zone you like. If you have to run your AC, make sure that you have the button for the AC pressed, and when the engine's running, that will light up. Over to the right is your vent control. And you can kind of just go off the little pictures here. Vents in the dash, heater and the dash, just your heater for your feet, defrost, so on and so forth. Also on here, you have to make sure you have if you're going to use the controls in the bunk, make sure you have this pressed on so the fan in the bunk will work. On the left-hand side, there are a couple light switches I forgot. This is your utility lights over here. On the on the left-hand side of the steering, this is also your windshield wipers. Twist to turn them on. There's a button in the middle to put the wash on. It's also for your high beams. Pull up or down, or just to flash them. But to turn them on and off, you'll pull it up like that. It'll have an indicator up there. Okay, well, let's go in the bunk and take a look at what we got back here. So all the bunk controls are on the driver's side, behind the driver's seat. You'll have your inverter controller and also the cab climate controls. And you'll have a radio, a USB connector, a couple other nice buttons back here. Okay, this is our climate control right here. This actually controls the heater for the S-bar heater, for the cab heater, and also the APU. To set it, you turn it on, and you can go through the different settings. There's your fan setting. Shows the hours of operation, Fahrenheit, Celsius, whatever you want. You set your temperature by going up or down on this button here. And you just leave it on. Your inverter control is right here. It'll show your voltage. If you have low batteries, make sure you fire it up and let the batteries charge up. If you just got off of a run, you should be just fine. If you don't have power to the plugs, go down to the inverter inside the cubby hole. There's a GFI plug on there. Hit the reset button to reset it. Before you call anybody, do that. And if that doesn't work out, then give us a call at maintenance and we'll get you into a shop to have it checked. over here now we have the cab climate control for when the truck is idling, or if you're driving down the road, if you have a co-driver, this is how you adjust it. You got a temperature set right here, a button for the air conditioning. You have to have that turned on if you want the AC on back here. But when you're in a truck stop, we want you to use the APU. It's going to save on fuel and wear and tear on the engine. There's one thing that's a real enemy of these modern day engines, it's idle time. It does do damage to the engines. So let's talk about the after treatment system on these trucks. In this KW, it's pretty much the same with any truck you drive. It consists of an EGR valve, an EGR cooler. The exhaust passes through those. What is not recirculated goes into the DPF filter. What this filter is, it is a soot filter pretty much. It catches the soot from the diesel and it accumulates in there. From there, the exhaust passes on to the SCR catalyst, which is pretty much a catalytic converter where it injects DEF fluid, which is urea, is what they call it. That chemical actually reacts with the molecules of the exhaust and turns it to water vapor, leaving no dirty air. The DPF filter is what I like to concentrate on. Soot will accumulate in there. The way the system actually works with this and deals with it is it goes into what they call a regen. It injects diesel fuel into the exhaust as a catalyst, and it will burn that diesel fuel. It's a very high temperature, up to 1500 to 1800 degrees, and it burns that soot off. Pretty much it turns it to ash. Eventually that ash is going to build up, and we have to deal with that later. The way it injects the fuel in, it's set up, the computer on the engine set up to put diesel into the outgoing exhaust. That's pulled through into the DPF filter, and that's what causes the regen. Now, as you're driving down the road, it should do automatic regens. When it's time to do it, it will illuminate, put an illumination on the dash, a warning light. It's not a warning light, just letting you know. I can't really show it on here, so it's not happening. If you see that, let it finish its job. Do not interrupt it. There's a disable button down here. Please leave that alone. Once it goes into regen, do not touch that button. Let it finish its job. There's going to be times when the DPF does get full and you're going to have to do a manual regen. The truck will tell you that. You need to make sure it's fired up, make sure it is warmed up to at least 170 degrees on your water temperature. Make sure you're parked in an area with no dry grass or anything that can catch fire. You will go ahead and down here, you'll see the disable manual button. You will push down on the manual button for at least 2 seconds. And you will hear it go into regen. It will go from a low idle to a high idle. Let that finish its deal. Don't interrupt it. If you interrupt it, it's going to end up causing problems for you. It'll derate the truck. Eventually, you'll have to be towed in. Always make sure you have DEF. You do not want to run out of DEF. When it detects the DEF tank is empty, it will derate you down. And as soon as you shut the engine off, that's it. You're going to do 5 miles an hour after that until we get DEF in it and get the codes cleared. So always pay attention. The DEF gauge on this truck is right next to the fuel gauge. You'll see here. Just make sure that's up above this level. This is a newer truck, so of course they don't put as much in it, but always make sure that you have DEF in there. And that's pretty much it. The safety system on this T680 Kenworth, it is equipped with a wingman system. You have radar on the front, on the bumper, it has a camera up in the windshield, and also has side scan radar for the blind spot. The way the radar works, if it detects something up ahead of you that's slower than you are, if you are gaining on it, it will apply brakes if you don't take some kind of action. As long as whatever's ahead of you is pulling away, even if they cut you off, it's going to let you know if they're too close, but it's not going to hit the brakes as long as they are pulling away. But the moment you start gaining on it, it will take action if you don't. It also works with the adaptive cruise on this. The adaptive cruise, when you set your cruise control, it detects what's up ahead of you. If that vehicle's moving slower, the cruise control will cut your speed down to match that speed until you get out and pass them. The camera up in the windshield, that is the lane detection camera. It detects the lines on the road. And if you start drifting or whatever, it will let you know by a loud sound. It does not affect the steering. It just puts out a loud sound to let you know that you're starting to drift. Make sure when you change lanes, if you don't want to hear that sound, make sure you have your turn signal on. it will not sound as long as you have your turn signal on. The side radar protection detects in your blind side if you have a vehicle or any kind of obstacle there. It will sound off and let you know. We also equipped all of our trucks with the Samsara forward-looking dash cam. This looks forward only, does not look back in the cab. There is no microphone so you can hear anybody or hear anything going on. It's just looking out over the hood and making sure that if anything happens, we have a record of what happened, and that's all that is. So with all of these trucks, if you have any questions, there are resources for you. Every truck will have an owner's manual in there. I highly suggest if you have questions, go in there into the index, look up what the component you're wanting to ask about, and you should be able to find the information you need. Freightliner has a great app. It's called a Smart Source app. You can go on there, just download it to your phone, and anything kind of a question you have, that'll answer it. And of course, if you any other questions, feel free to check in with any shop manager. We're more than happy to help and answer any questions you have.